A matchup of epic proportions. One that has just owned some of the biggest games in the NFL over the last 4 years. The record
Yeah.
at this point, regular season and playoffs, is 4-4. The Bills and the Chiefs. But the three times that they've met in the playoffs, Chiefs won all three.
Season one.
So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where you don't want to say that the games the Bills have won don't matter, because they
No,
do.
we do.
But it's a different beast when you get in the playoffs, especially when it's in an AFC championship game and it's in Arrowhead. So these teams matched up when they were in November, but it was at Buffalo. Buffalo won that game 30-21. Rematch here, rematch in a lot of ways. Winner goes to the Super Bowl. Matchup that matters, Carmen. What do we got?
Yeah. So this is a little bit. All right. Here's the thing. Both of these teams are capable of winning this game. The Bills are capable of beating the Chiefs. We saw it in the regular season. Even if you look at their past two playoff games, if you look in 2023 and 2021, the divisional rounds, they were never more than a score apart. They're trading blows back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The Bills can contend with the Chiefs. They just need to not go into the game thinking that they can't, if that makes sense. Like, you cannot go into this game with a hangover from the last two times y'all have met in the postseason, or all three times for that matter, given that the Chiefs have won all three of those matchups. That's my biggest thing. And it's not, again, it's probably not the best for this because it's not as quantifiable, but you can't beat yourselves with like the Chiefs of it all. And thinking like, I mean, I think back to this, like the last game against the Texans, where after the game, after they lose, they come out and talk about the refs and how whatever with the Chiefs and that whole narrative. And like, I'm not here to say whether that's right or wrong as far as if the Chiefs do get better calls than most and all that other stuff. But what I'm saying is, if you're entering into a game already thinking about that, or you're going to blame that for your performance, you've lost. You have absolutely lost already. You cannot make excuses. You cannot go into it thinking, well, the Chiefs are always going to get those calls. Oh, the Chiefs have beat us this many times in the postseason, yada, yada, yada. Play your game, because every single time you guys have played, it's been tough. And you have won some of those matchups, not in the postseason, but it's the mentality of everything. And it's going into Arrowhead and not letting those demons crop back up. It's Josh Allen continuing to be what we've seen of him the last half of the season in particular, but this season, where he's bucked every narrative that has been, problematic. At first he was just a gunslinger and he wasn't accurate. Well, then he got accurate. Well, now, he's still turning the ball over. Well, now he's not turning the ball over anymore. If you play your game, if Josh Allen plays as well as he's able to, if this offense is as complete as it can be, and this offensive line is as good as it has been this season, could easily beat the Chiefs. Easily. But you can't beat yourselves with the mentality going into this and get haunted and then regress. Let that haunting kind of regress you back to the other times that you've played where there have been crucial mistakes in this, that, the other. So it's not necessarily a quantifiable matchup that matters, but it's the Bills versus their idea of the Chiefs and what that is. And are you going into that with the utmost confidence that you can go into Arrowhead and make it to the Super Bowl?
Bills are at their best when they're running the football, and then when they're running it well. And I think that they will need to run the football this week to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. When you looked at the Bills' victory over the Kansas City Chiefs, that actually was not a big reason why they won. No running back averaged more than 3.6 yards per carry in that victory over Kansas City. And last week, when they played the Baltimore Ravens, I think that part of what made that game so close, even given the turnovers that the Baltimore Ravens had, is the Bills were not able to have a healthy yards per carry average, specifically with James Cook, who got the lion's share of their carries. By running the ball very well, I think it fully unlocks everything that the Bills want to do on offense. It gets their tight ends more involved. It makes them more diverse in their passing game. Certainly, it does not allow the Chiefs' edge rushers and box players to tee off on them when it comes to attacking the line of scrimmage. All of that goes into account, as well as owning the time of possession in the game and keeping Patrick Mahomes on the sideline. To me, it is a pivotal part of this game. They have to run the ball much better than they did the first time that they played the Chiefs when they beat them. And they have to run the ball better than they even did last week against the Ravens, because the Ravens were the better team last week. They just happen to also turn the ball over more. And that's the backbreaking thing about why you lose football games. I saw Joe Marino said this in a group chat that I'm in. I'm not sure where he got this quote. Maybe he made it up himself because he's a smart guy, so I'd believe it. He says NFL games are lost far more than they are won. And that is what happened last week. The Baltimore Ravens lost that football game. Now, when I say that, and when I say that phrase, it does not take anything away from the team that won. They put themselves in position to be able to do it, but the Baltimore Ravens were, in many accounts, the better team last week. They just happened to lose it. Buffalo has to be a team that presents themselves with a very high floor. They have to unlock everything that they do on offense, and they have to unlock Josh Allen to his full potential. The way you do that is by leaning on an offensive line who has been one of the best offensive lines in the NFL down the stretch, even in the playoffs, and that includes how they can compete in the run game. To me, it is a pivotal part of so many different parts of why they would be able to go into Arrowhead and take down the Kansas City Chiefs. But to me, the matchup that matters is the Chiefs' run defense versus the Bills' run game. Because if the Bills run the ball well, I really do think that's their best chance to win.
Yeah, I completely agree too. And what, most importantly, from what you said earlier, is that helps you control the clock, the time of possession, and it keeps Patrick Mahomes off the field, which goes into what my plus factor is, which is Josh Allen's ball security, because it has been phenomenal. Last 8 weeks, just one interception, 7 games played, 1 interception, no fumbles. Has not committed a turnover in the postseason. That goes back to last year, in fact. Last 4 postseason games, Josh Allen has not committed a turnover. So that needs to continue. And part of that is about how good this offensive line is and how much they are. Aaron Kromer and his staff, the Bills offensive line coach, is not afraid to add some extra guys to that offensive line. Utilize jumbo formation, 6 or more offensive linemen, 22% of their offensive snaps versus the Ravens in the divisional round. So that's something that I expect to carry over, especially when you're talking about wanting to run the ball more, control the clock more, make sure you're not committing turnovers, make sure Josh Allen is protected, because when Josh Allen isn't protected, when he is pressured, his passer rating goes down drastically. He was only pressured on 5 dropbacks against the Ravens, but he went just 2 for 5, 2 completions on those 5 attempts, 39 yards, 67.9 passer rating when pressured, versus not pressured, 109.5 rating on the season when Josh Allen is not pressured. So there is a very real thing to how much Josh Allen needs to be protected. And sometimes that can be a little bit longer than most, given how much he likes to scramble and improvise in the backfield. And then how is that going to compare to the Kansas City Chiefs, who honestly this season, pretty average as far as pressure percentage. They ranked 18th in pressure percentage this season, 32.8%. But Chris Jones, as we all know, they can move him all along the formation, all along that defensive line, tied for 12th with Nick Bosa in individual pressures this season. He's only 39th in pressure percentage, so they use him a lot to try and get that pass rush going. But if we know anything about Spags too, it's not just the defensive line that is involved in that pass rush too. He can present various looks, different things up front, and bring guys in from different levels of the defense. So that's something I'm looking at too. And then you look at a guy like George Karlaftis, who had a great game against the Texans, kind of came on 3 sacks, 8 pressures. If he is firing on all cylinders on top of Chris Jones, this is going to be a tall task for the Buffalo Bills offensive line. But like you alluded to, like I've been talking about for the last few weeks, especially, this is a very underrated unit as far as I'm concerned. I think they're one of the best offensive lines in football, and they are going to need to keep up what they've already established so that Josh Allen can keep up the ball security, the efficiency, all of that kind of stuff that goes with it, and not give extra possessions to Patrick Mahomes and that offense, and to keep the ball out of the Kansas City offense's hands.
You talked about, Chris Jones and certainly the couple of takeover players that the Chiefs have had at certain points along their defensive line to this point of the season and postseason. Osiris Torrence, the interior offensive lineman for the Buffalo Bills, is my plus factor here because
Love that.
last week against the Baltimore Ravens, he was basically the lone weak link. And I think throughout the season, he has been somebody who has struggled with pass protection. Last week alone, 37.3 pass blocking grade, 4 pressures allowed, a 16.0 pressure percentage. The rest of the team, 0 sacks allowed, and just 6 pressures allowed from Buffalo total last week. That includes Osiris Torrance's 4. So the rest of the team allowed just 2 pressures while he allowed 4 himself. Steve Spagnuolo is like the Kyle Shanahan under a microscope meme. When he sees a weak link, he will attack it in full force. And if Osiris Torrance plays like a weak link along the offensive line, you better believe Chris Jones is going to line up against one of his shoulders or head up against him the entire game. So to me, Torrance, it's hard to block Chris Jones, but he cannot be as bad as he was last week and as bad as he has been at times throughout the season, because as good as the Bills' offensive line is, if he is that big of a weak link in pass protection, Steve Spagnuolo is going to throw his best straight at him. So he can be a one-man savior, it feels like, or he can be a reason why this team is going to lose if they end up losing. So to me, he is the ultimate plus factor for that reason. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below. So if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you become one today.